Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of DGS. We are still in the middle of interrogating the two Templar brothers because apparently they are still hiding information to us, and now there might be a third person involved in the incident that happened at the pawn shop. So we're gonna find out in their little testimony. Oh shit, I forgot to lower the volume. Not bad. Encounter with the victim.
We had just snuck into the pawn shop and were about to get started when that guy suddenly appeared.
He launched himself at us, screaming, "Give that gun here!" I thought we were going to pop our clogs.
He was a pretty strong for an old bloke. He pushed me over the desk like I was a sack of potatoes.
We somehow managed to get our pistol trained on him when the old guy ran off through that door in the back.
That's it. We really had nothing to do with it. For real.
So you're telling us that just before the murder occurred, you encountered the victim, Mr. Hatch, in that pawn shop?
Yes, sorry.
It would seem that this new development has changed the situation quite a bit.
This time, that's
really all that happened.
I don't believe that one bit.
Now then, defense, you will begin the cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. It's finally here. This is the moment I've been waiting for. Alright, let's do it. Let's figure out who this he person they were referring to earlier, maybe in this thing. When you say that guy, you're referring to the victim, Hatch-san, right?
That I mean, yes, that's right.
we were keeping a pretty good eye on the shop's entrance, but we never imagined that someone would come out of the door in the back.
The door in the back of the shop. You mean the one to the storeroom, right?
Yes, I'm pretty sure he came from behind that door. Yes.
It sounds as though the victim had already been in the storeroom.
Then, does that mean that at the time, Ginny was already in the storeroom?
But that seems a little odd, too. If Gina-san had threatened him with the pistol and they gone into the storeroom together, then why was it only Hatch-san who came back into the shop? So, did you see any sign of the defendant at that time?
That little pickpocket? I couldn't tell ya.
Anyway, we weren't in any situation to notice something like that. See, when that old man came in,
You guys are sweating bullets here. You testified earlier about that phrase, "Give that pistol here." And you said, "We heard it from the other side of the door."
eh? Huh? Did we really?
But actually the victim was shouting that at you, correct?
Oh, yeah, well, that's how it went.
You seem a little unsure about that, mister. And at that time, the victim, Mr. Hatch, was holding the pistol.
Yes, we were locked dead in the pistol's crosshairs.
So then, you two saw Hatch-san and the pistol at that time.
Well, that's what we're saying.
That old man suddenly came flying at me.
Seriously, it wasn't possible to tell who was the attacker and who was the attackee.
I think everyone's pretty clear on that.
Anyway, we thought it was all over for us.
That desk you just mentioned, it's the same one that you mentioned earlier, right?
Yeah. Of course it was!
The mountain of books went flying, the silver candle holder rolled away, and that skull that was sitting there clattered across the floor.
The French door lost his head, the picture frame fell over, and the holding plates on the scale fell on the floor.
Which would mean that all that didn't occur because you were startled by the gunshot, right?
Well, if you want to split hairs, I guess it'd be more honest to say that we were grabbed, I guess?
I reckon if I had been alone, I'd been squashed in 3 seconds flat.
It was at this point that the yard received a crime in progress signal from the pawn shop. There was a secret alarm line installed under the desk, and the victim used it to send the signal. That's right. That night, as soon as I chased them out of the shop, I ran right into a police officer who had come to check on the situation.
Old Mr. Hatch was just trying to protect his shop.
Oh. Were you planning to shoot Hatsan?
Of course not! I just, I wanted to save my brother here. He was being squashed flat.
The one who really needed help was unquestionably Hatch-san. Then the victim, with the pistol trained on him, fled, correct?
That's right. He sent me flying and then slammed the door in the back.
I wonder why. That statement just now gave me this strange, uneasy feeling.
Why did old Mr. Hatch have to run behind that door? Think about it. At that time, in the storeroom, Jeannie must have been waiting with the pistol, right?
Oh, she's got a point. But Gina-san supposedly grabbed Hatch-san's pistol and threatened him with it. So what was Hatch-san doing with that pistol, I wonder?
Huh. You're right. There's something funny going on here.
I better make a note of this uneasy feeling.
Anyway, we...
That's right, we...
Nothing to do with it?
That's right.
That old man ran off behind the door, and that was the end of it.
It was locked from the other side, so there was nothing we could have done about it.
We even tried opening the door and everything.
But the proper storeroom door like that one didn't even budge.
Which means that in the end, all of this changes nothing. The only one who could have shot the victim while he was inside the storeroom was the defendant, Gina Lestrade, and no one else. That is all.
It certainly seems that way. Your thoughts, Defense?
I wonder, could the only one with the ability to shoot Hatsan have been Gina-san? There was no one else, there was someone else. Templar-san!
What is it?
Quit glaring at us.
The moment you two admitted to the fact that you encountered Hatch-san that night, the situation completely changed.
Eh?
What do you mean, Defense? If we're talking about who could have shot Hatch-san, there is another possibility besides the victim. That is the Defense's belief. I forgot he was on a crate. Interesting. Let us consult the overhead map of the crime scene once more. The victim died inside the storeroom, which had been locked from the inside. Considering the circumstances, what other possibility could there possibly be?
Now then, defense. The court would like you to answer these 2 questions.
2 of them? Why are there so many questions?
Namely, where did the killer shoot from, and where was the victim shot? Those are the 2.
Understood.
Have you got this, Not-Hulda-kun?
I'm not sure, but there's one thing I do know. If I can indicate a new possibility here, then it'll definitely impact our situation in a big way. Very well, then let's hear your answer. Use this overhead map to indicate your answer. If you're going to claim that someone else besides the defendant could have been the killer, then where did that person fire from? Just outside the door. If the killer were here, we can assume that it would have been possible for them to commit the crime. Then let us hear your other answer. Where was the victim the moment he took the bullet? He was already inside the storeroom. The killer shot the victim from outside the storeroom door. Go on. The victim, Hatch-san, took a bullet to the back and died instantly. I'm so sorry for all the background noise. As far as we can see by looking at the pool of blood, there is no sign of the body having been moved. And that would mean that Hatch-san really was in the storeroom when he was shot. The important thing is where was the bullet fired from?
So, you're saying it wasn't from inside the storeroom?
According to the Templar brothers' testimony earlier.
We somehow managed to get our pistol trained on him when the old guy ran off through that door in the back.
He ran off through that door, which would mean that at the very least, the door was open at that time.
Oh!
The moment the victim turned their backs on the witnesses and fled into the storeroom. As long as someone were inside the shop, they could have shot him in the back.
Oh!
Now that you mention it, the prosecutor said it at the very beginning, didn't he?
Here are the results of the inspection conducted by the yard's coroner. The bullet entered the corpse's back at a slight upward slant. In other words, we can assume that the victim was shot by someone shorter than him.
Old Man Hatch was shot running for his life, huh?
I see. When you run, your body leans forward a bit. So even if someone took a straight shot at him, the bullet would have entered at an upward slant.
And that means that the killer wasn't necessarily shorter than him, doesn't it?
Oops, I went a little ahead, didn't I? I trust you haven't forgotten that the door to the storeroom was closed and locked from the inside. If the victim who had run in there had died instantly, there's no way the storeroom could have been locked. But, in regards to who locked that door from the inside, don't you think there's only one person it could have logically been? What?
The court will now hear the defense's thoughts. According to the possibility that you just presented, the bullet was fired from outside the storeroom. Who was the one that locked the storeroom from the inside?
Gina. Of course, it was the only other person who was in the storeroom at the time. The one who locked the door was the defendant, Gina Lestrade. Lestrade? I'm still getting those two together. Oh, whoa, damage! Ridiculous. The defendant locked herself and the victim in that closed-off room, you say? The defendant would have had no reason to do that. Yes, she would! Wouldn't it only have cast undue suspicion on her?
Indeed. Your thoughts, defense.
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
Kindly refrain from speaking up until you've thought things through. Why would Gina have locked the door? I don't think you have to think so hard about it.
No, you don't. Iris-chan?
I mean, if I had been in Jeannie's place, I'd have locked that door too, and as quickly as I could. After all, someone had just been shot by a bad guy with a pistol.
That's right. Just before the murder, Hatch-san and Gina-san were in the storeroom together. And I'm not sure what sort of exchange took place, but Hatch-san noticed the presence of the intruders and emerged from the storeroom.
Intruders? That means us, doesn't it?
And at that time, the defendant was left alone in the storeroom. Yes, that's what we can assume. And Hatch-san ran back into the storeroom. Hatch-san was shot in the back and fell into the storeroom. So what might Gina-san have been doing then?
Ah! You mean...
Outside that storeroom was a fearsome murderer who had just shot Hatch-san. With that in mind, Gina-san slammed the door shut and locked it, in order to protect herself.
But us two, I mean, we're not the murderers.
You gotta believe us. We'll never shoot someone.
But you two really did shoot someone. Right in front of my eyes. So you shot Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, you did. So there's only one conclusion we can draw. Templar-san, it's possible for you to have committed the crime.
Oh.
Oh, God.
So, what does this mean?
It means the one who shot the pawn shop owner wasn't that pickpocket girl.
Yeah, those three dodgy-looking brothers must have done it then.
You did it, Naruhodo-kun. All the jurors have come over to your side.
Yeah, to be honest, this will probably be the first and last time in history.
At this rate, I think they'll switch over out at once to a not guilty verdict.
You certainly gave this your best effort, didn't you, defense? Prosecutor Von Zeeks. He's laughing.
What's this all about, Lord Von Zeeks? The alternative explanation defense presented was quite convincing.
1 second, I must pour myself some wine. Perhaps Oriental street performers use such methods to deceive their audience. A malicious distraction that could be considered an unpardonable act of violence. What? That so-called possibility you presented never existed in the first place. Because within it lies a fatal contradiction. Contradiction? Don't tell me you really didn't notice.
If I may humbly request, Lord Von Zeeks, could you explain this man's worthless distraction to us?
The fatal contradiction is really quite simple. And naturally, that's the number of bullets.
Number of bullets?
Ah,
Oh shit, right,
I should have known that prosecutor would have caught that.
What's everyone talking about? Defense. Yes. How many bullets were recovered from the crime scene? 2 of them. That's right. One of those was fired from behind the victim and took his life. The other hit the detective who rushed onto the scene, Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
That's true. The photos the defense presented earlier also shows those bullet holes. The hole that struck Mr. Holmes passed through his body and hit the calendar.
Then why did we need a surgery to... Wait. What? Hold on. Wait. No, maybe I'm thinking too hard on this. Precisely. And there were 2 pistols connected to the case that were fired. The one belonging to the victim, Mr. Hatch, and the one belonging to the Templar brothers. Both of them showed signs of having been fired once each.
Once each? By Jove, you're right.
Also defense. You said this with your own mouth, did you not? That these men shot Mr. Sherlock Holmes before your own eyes. Yes.
Huh? Now, hold on a moment.
If only one shot was fired from their gun, and that shot hit Mr. Holmes, then...
They couldn't possibly have been the ones who shot the pawn shop owner.
Exactly. This Japanese boy did indeed present a possibility. However, the probability of the events actually having occurred that way has been 0 from the very start.
Ah!
So we just went around that way, only be told this? God damn it. Prosecution, please.
Order! Order! Order!
And there goes the wine bottle. It was utterly uncouth of me to have thrown the Lord's wine bottle into the gallery, and for that I must beg your indulgence.
Lord Von Zeeks.
I like to make this abundantly clear to everyone who is present in this courtroom. The defendant, Gina Lestrade, is not just a girl. Her age may allow her to still fall under the category of a child, but, unfortunately, she is not a good, law-abiding citizen. She's a fully fledged criminal. The fact is that she trespassed on the crime scene on the night of the murder with foul intentions, and pointed the murder weapon at the victim as we see here. And there is one more item I would like you to direct your attention to. What? Suddenly the disc. That disc.
Scotland Yard will be taking possession of that item left behind after the death of Cosney Mangadal. You better not give it to him, Naruhodo. That belongs to me.
Sorry to have to tell you this, young lady, but all of Mangadal's possessions are being confiscated as evidence. That's Mangadal's music box disc. The day before the murder, the defendant attempted to steal this from Hatch's pawn shop. And that means that she employed to do so were... And the means that she employed to do so were not pickpocketing, but something closer to fraud.
What?
You mustn't sympathize with the defendant because she's still just a child. If she finds herself cornered, she may commit even more serious crimes. You mustn't forget that even for a second.
Understood. The court would like you to present that music box disc as evidence indicating the defendant's humanity.
Begging your pardon, Lord Von Zeeks. What? Detective Gregson? What is it?
As a result of the joint investigation meeting held yesterday between the Yard and the prosecutor's office, it was decided that that disc would not be presented.
What? But what? What's going on here? This is the first time I've ever heard. Detective Gregson stand up to Prosecutor Von Zeeks. I heard nothing of such a meeting.
But wasn't it supposed to have been a request from the government?
The only one who can make decisions about the proceedings of this trial is me, Von Zeeks, and me alone. Screw the government, I'm the law here. I appreciate the warning, Detective Gregson. Now then, the prosecution will present this evidence, Your Honor.
Very well. The court accepts it.
Music box disc enables a music box to play. There's a memo on the back that says to Mangadal. Opportunity, motive, and the defendant's danger potential as a criminal. All of these elements have been established in this case. I expect our jurors to arrive at the courageous verdict. Well, shit. What the heck? Just for a second, I was sure that the jurors were on my side.
Oh, it really was just for a second, wasn't it?
Your Honor! May I, Platoon Leader Garadeb, say just one thing?
What might that be, head juror?
Recent developments have dispelled all doubt from among us. The one verdict to rule them all is here.
This can't be.
Very well. The court will hear that verdict. Jurors, register your votes.
Yuzai!
Yuzai.
Yuzai! Yuzai!
Yuzai.
Yuzai!
I like how the doctor uses his head. Maybe because he wants to keep his gloves clean, I guess. Alright.
It seems that the jurors' votes are unanimous.
Once you eliminate all other possibilities, whatever remains must be the truth.
Hey! That's one of the lines I wrote for Holmesy. Damn you, stealing that line and using it to brag with.
Don't worry, I don't plan to allow it to end here. There must be some fact here that I don't know yet. After all, I know that Gina-san didn't shoot Hatsan. There's no way. Alright, we're not going to continue yet, but apparently we're going to actually look at the disc now that we have it. And Iris is with us. Let's see if she can examine this blood.
Ah, Nonohoto-kun. This is blood, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. This small drop of blood. Come to think of it, I remember seeing it before too.
Alright, it's been a while, but it's come again. Time to use this baby. Okay, Naruhodo-kun, hold that disc real still, okay?
I know. Would you please just do it already?
Right, then here we go.
Wasn't the calendar's blood also green? Then why is this one green too?
Oh, vivid as ever, huh?
This color.
What is it, Naruhodo-kun?
It's just this green color. I feel like I've seen it before. Oh. So this blood drop came from Egg Benedict, right? So that means if the calendar is also green, that means that blood that's on the calendar is actually Egg Benedict's and not Sherlock's. Oh shit. Blood distinction sample. A blood sample taken with Holmes-san's custom-made chemicals. Reacts by turning different color depending on whose blood it is. Currently there are 4 samples. Okay then.
Very well. We will now begin the second final appeal. Are you prepared, jurors?
We are always prepared to launch an attack.
Good. Jurors, the court orders you to state your reasons and basics for voting that the defendant is guilty.
We're gonna listen to the jurors' appeal. We'll hear the jurors' testimonies in the next video because we are out of time. So I'll see you guys then. Let's figure out who this he person they were referring to earlier, maybe in this thing. When you say that guy, you're referring to the victim, Hatch-san, right?
That I believe, I mean yes. That's right.
We were keeping a pretty good eye on the shop's entrance, but we never imagined that someone would come out of the door in the back.
The door in the back of the shop. You mean the one to the storeroom, right?
Yes, I'm pretty sure he came from behind that door. Yes.
It sounds as though the victim had already been in the storeroom. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of DGS. We are still in the middle of interrogating the 2 Templar brothers because apparently they are still hiding information to us, and now there might be a 3rd person involved in the incident that happened at the pawn shop. So we're gonna find out in their little testimony. Oh shit, I forgot to lower the volume. Not bad. Encounter with the victim.
We had just snuck it.
Yes, sorry.
It would seem that this new development has changed the situation quite a bit.
This time, that's
really all that happened.
I don't believe that one bit.
Now then, defense, you will begin the cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. It's finally here. This is the moment I've been waiting for. Alright, let's do it.
Then, does that mean that at the time, Ginny was already in the storeroom?
But that seems a little odd too. If Gina-san had threatened him with the pistol and they'd gone into the storeroom together, then why was it only Hatch-san who came back into the shop? So, did you see any sign of the defendant at that time?
That little pickpocket? I couldn't tell ya.
Anyway, we weren't in any situation to notice something like that. See, when that old man came in...
Into the pawn shop and we're about to get started, when that guy suddenly appeared.
He launched himself at us, screaming, "Give that gun here!" I thought we were going to pop our clogs.
He was a pretty strong for an old bloke. He pushed me over the desk like I was a sack of potatoes.
We somehow managed to get our pistol trained on him, when the old guy ran off through that door in the back.
Yeah, that's it. We really had nothing to do with it. For real.
So you're telling us that just before the murder occurred, you encountered the victim, Mr. Hatch, in that pawn shop?